Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy Quali. I'm your host of Nonstop Playing, and I'm back with another serious topic. Whew. Man, I'm just ecstatic right now. I took a couple of days off and getting some other things in order. It's getting closer and closer and closer to the new baby coming here. 30 weeks in, and as y'all know, around this time things are kind of crazy. So, just trying to take care of that and make sure the lady she's good and, whipping up more in the kitchen and, doing little tedious things just to make sure she's comfortable and, starting to plan stuff out. So for those of you who haven't gone through this process or even in the midst of going through this process, just hold on, go, keep strong and, for the fellas, hold your lady down, man. Make sure she's good. 'Cause at the end of the day, that's the least we can do, man. She probably don't been through a lot of stuff these last, the last coming months. So do your thing as a father, us black father figures out there, specifically, hold it down and keep doing what you're doing, man. Especially if it's positive. Now, if you on that other ish, fix yourself, my boy. Get your act together. You feel me? But again, as I get into this episode, it's episode 9. It's episode 9. So I got one more episode to go for season 1, and then I already got an onslaught of things coming season 2. I got some collabs, I got some guest appearances, so I'm just super excited. I didn't think that this would blow up as much as it has, and don't get me wrong, it's not crazy, but for me it's crazy because I've always been told, man, you got a lot. You should start a blog or you should start a podcast. You should do something because you got a lot to say and like you're a funny dude when it's all said and done though too. I'm like, yeah, I'm cool in a sense, right? But I'm just excited that things are going the way that they're going. So again, I appreciate the love, appreciate the support. So just keep, you know, sending my stuff out to people. If you've listened to it, man, share it with your family, share it with your friends, share it with random strangers. They might, like I said, it might be something that might change their life. So that's all I'm really here for is just to give a perspective, give some knowledge, and talk about some topics that I think that we need to be talking about that aren't talked about enough. You know what I'm saying? So appreciate that. And if you're listening in on Spotify, hit that follow button so you'll know that if I drop some new content. Like I said, the YouTube channel is finally almost up. I'm just getting these last little videos tweaked and figured out or whatnot. Because again, I'm a one man machine right now, and I wear multiple hats. I wear multiple hats. So again, just keep supporting, keep sharing it with folks, and I appreciate everything that everyone does. Even if it's the smallest thing, I appreciate it. So thank you all. But just a recap from last episode, the topic of at hand was, are you a buyer or are you a seller? And like I said, the inspiration in that came from the movie Baby Boy when he was talking to his boy Peanut, and was talking about commerce, the exchange of good from hand to hand based on two people having a common interest or a difference of interest, but they have something a common in goal, a common thing in goal as far as what they may want from each other. And I really talked to what I got into was the essence of entrepreneurship. How do you become an entrepreneur in a sense, when you've been conditioned your whole life to think that you have to, be a consumer, don't get me wrong, being a consumer is not bad, but it's for me, it's kind of like a disease. It's a parasite because once it links and locks into you, you tapped in, and it's very unhealthy in my opinion, because especially in our community, it's super unhealthy because again, our dollar stays in our community only 6 hours. When we do get some money, what we do, we go out and buy stuff that is not applicable to, what we're really trying to attain in life, unless that's what all in a sense. But again, our spending habits, what we do, and the fact that we are outside of our community so much when it comes to spending money when we are a multi-trillion-dollar community, it doesn't baffle me anymore because it's just like it frustrates me because I know that we could be doing better. So, I just talked about that in that episode. I think it's a super important episode because we gotta change the mode. We gotta get ourselves back on track, especially with that. It grows into that group economics piece. And I was just talking to somebody the other day about, what we need to be doing with our group. Actually, it's a guy that I met. It's an investor that I'm starting to partner up with to get into this real estate game. We was talking about group economics and Dr. Claude Anderson and, his book on power economics and just all that, in that essence. And shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson, shout out to Dr. Boyce Watkins, they've really been, well, Dr. Claude Anderson, he really paved the way for the whole essence of how group economics. And Dr. Boyce Watkins, he's out here on social media, follow him on IG and other platforms, and he be dropping gems. He got a private group. I think it's the name of his group in terms of might be Black Group Economics. It's something like that. I follow him on IG, and he be dropping gems. He be talking about different stuff across different topics in a sense, right? So shout out to those two brothers, being trailblazers and trying to keeping the marathon going in a sense. Shout out to Nipsey. I do a lot of shout outs because I got to give flowers, like I said, and I'm always giving flowers because most of the stuff I know I wouldn't know unless I was introduced to it by other individuals. So I always got to shout those people out that have had some type of an influence on my life and my learning capabilities and understand. Well, that's me in a sense, but those who have had some type of involvement in my learning journey. So without further ado, let me get into this episode. So again, I gave you a recap and I kind of gave you a little insert of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about my education, right? And like my journey through, going through school and things of that nature. And ironically, the name of this episode is called "You're a Nerd, I Know." So it's kind of a play off of "You're a Jerk," that song or whatnot. Very popular song in the 2000s. Was that the early 2000s? So I am a nerd, and I know that I'm a nerd, and I really embrace that categorization of myself, that characteristic of mine. And for the longest I never knew that I was super intellectual and super knowledgeable about things until I started talking to other people, right? Because people always tell me when I had conversations with them, man, you know a lot of stuff, dude. Like, how do you know all this stuff, man? How do you conduct yourself in this way? How do you do this? How you do that? And honestly, I can't give them a solid answer. I just tell them I read, I look into things, and I keep my mind open to the unknown, right? Or the things that are not emphasized much in society, right? Because again, I'll talk about the Matrix, how we're taught what they want us to be taught so that we continue to be brainwashed and led astray in a sense, right? And for me, I don't do that. I open my ears to everything. I let my mind expand. I massage that muscle in your head, because again, if you're not giving yourself, if you're not feeding your brain, it deteriorates. It's a muscle. You got to continue to work it out, repetition. And again, and there's other aspects that play on that, but I'm not gonna get into that in this episode. But I really want to talk about my educational journey for real, because I think that is something that we kind of look over in our community. Don't get me wrong, we celebrate the essence of Black excellence in a sense, right? Black people that graduate from HBCU specifically, even if they graduate from PWIs, everybody graduation is a, man, listen, it goes up, right? We got the barbecue going normally, or it's a huge party that don't end in a sense, right? So we glorify education because of course, we weren't able to learn during slavery, and you could be killed, or you things could be done to you, right? Physical harm could be done to you, or you could be killed if you had an education back during slavery time. And the fact that we weren't able to go to school up until, what year was that? I know Oberlin College was one of the first institutions. It's in Ohio. It was one of the first institutions to grant African slaves, or free slaves in a sense, to be able to go to school. And of course, some Africans, if they had money, they went to Harvard, Yale. They were able to do that during slavery times. And again, that area is so murky because, again, there's so many stories related to what happened, who did what, and why it happened. But again, they change the history books, they change the information all the time. And we talk about, just recently, they got rid of critical race theory. And I think 10 states right now, 10 states have allowed the eradication of critical race theory in teaching. They could let that sink in, right? We got 50 states, 10 of them say, all right, we ain't talking about Atlantic slave trade no more. We're not talking about civil rights no more. We're not talking about nothing that's pertaining to that would deem the colonizers evil. Let that sink in, right? So again, my journey has been pretty fun for the most part, and I chuckle when I think about it, especially when I speak to people who have known me for some time, and they reflect on things that their experience with me in and outside of the classroom. So let me just get started. So again, like I told you, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and my I would say from K through 5, right? K through 5, I went to like 14 different schools, right? 14 different schools, K through 5. That's a lot of schools, a lot of schools. And reason being is because we moved around a lot. So um, I never stayed at a school longer than a year for the most part. Only school I stayed at for the year, more than a year, was I went to an immersion school. So at one point, your boy, he was speaking fluent German. So I spreche nicht Deutsch, right? So I can speak German, not as fluent as I did when I was a kid. This is back in like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, right? So I went to that school. So I was learning German for a hot minute, and was fluent in that. So and even today I try to refresh it, because again, you got to be multi versatile in this world. You got to be able to learn different things, because again, it helps your brain grow. So that's one of the things. So I went to about 14 different schools. That was the longest school I attended. That in this school called OW Holmes, um, or whatnot. But one thing I can remember is I've expressed on different episodes. If you can't see me through the actual podcast Spotify, but on YouTube you'll be able to see me. Um, I am a caramel complexion in a sense. I like to call myself, now that I've been out here in Arizona and I've gotten a little more tan, because my underhues are red, so I'm like a red velvet, light red velvet almost. But I got red hair, so like a black ginger, they would say, and I got freckles. So with that, uh, again, I was bullied and teased a lot, but the aspect of it was I was smarter than most people in my class, and mainly probably the smartest person in my class, and especially K through 5. And you're like, well, who's really smart K through 5? Well, for me, I was actually uh, teaching classes, like being able to come up to. But then again, I was diagnosed with ADHD, so sometimes I couldn't really sit still. But again, when you're high functioning, I'm not saying high functioning ADHD, but high functioning as a person, your brain continues to, your synapses are firing rapidly all the time. So you're getting information in and out, in and out, in and out. So of course you're not gonna sit still. Of course you can't focus, because you have so many things going on in your mind, and schools haven't set themselves up to be able to cater to students like that. Especially little black boys, they always say little black boys got ADD, ADHD, and so many things. Like I feel like they only do that so that they can medicate us, right? They can medicate us and have us sitting around like zombies, because they don't want us. They don't want us in their classroom, because again, most when we talk about K through 12, majority of the teachers are normally white women. White women don't know how to handle black boys. Come on now, let's be real. So yeah, but that's another story for another time. We talk about medication, overdiagnoses. I've done research on this in regards to that aspect. But yeah, so I was diagnosed with that. But how am I a disruption in the classroom when I'm able to teach the classroom? So of course I'm retaining information. So what sense does that really make? So again, the system is set up the way it's set up for a reason, and they target and pick on certain individuals, and specifically black boys, for a reason. So, but again, that's another story for another time. Um, but yeah, the K through 5, that was one of the big things. I was uh, diagnosed with that, so they had me medicated on the Ritalin, things of that nature. Didn't like it. It was nasty. Always had stomach aches, and at some point, I told my mom, like, I can't take this no more. It's messing me up. So eventually took me off. But some of the highlights of that, outside of that being diagnosed and being on medication, was one, I taught myself how to write in cursive in second grade. How many second graders do you know? And how I taught myself was, in the classroom, we had the border around the class. Of course, they got like the different um, signs, and ABC this, 1, 2, 3 that, like all around the room, to give you kind of decorum of the room, right? So we had cursive letters across. They don't teach kids cursive no more, and I think that's a skill that we need, especially when we talk about people signing their signature. But then again, with technology nowadays, you use your finger to do that. So I guess it's irrelevant. But I feel like it's a skill that kids should still learn because I think it's important. Right? It's just like sign language. I feel like everybody should learn sign language, regardless of if they are hearing impaired or not. They should learn sign language because you need to be able to interact with people. You need to be able to do certain things. But we learned about Shakespeare. What does Shakespeare teach you? Nothing. But yeah, so I would see the little border across around the room, and I'm like, what is that? That's pretty neat. So I actually started tracing and making letters and doing things and connecting letters. Before you know it, I'm writing in cursive, and even to this day, I can write in print, but writing in print it's just weird. Like I kid you not, I write in cursive all the time. Be like, you have such pretty handwriting. I'm like, well, yeah, I perfected it over the last 25 years now, because that's all I've been doing since I was 7 years old is writing in print cursive. So that's one thing. Also, I remember back in the day I used to because I would get my homework done super fast. Like my homework would be done before we leave the classroom. So I'm sitting there chilling. Of course, we got the knuckleheads in the class that don't want to do anything. So they're like, "Oh man, you want to do my homework from me?" I'm like, "Yeah, if you pay me." So I was like, literally getting paid to do people like word if they got to write words or whatever. Like I was getting paid for that money. I was getting paid Pokemon cards, all kind of stuff. Like I was a hustler back as a kid. Like, well, I'm still a hustler now, but it for me that signified that I had a gift that not everybody has. You know what I'm saying? So K-5 was cool in that aspect, but also, of course, again, being a nerd and being the kid that the freckle face, red hair nerd in the class. Of course, I got into a lot of fights. But ironically, a lot of these dudes that I was getting into fights with, they didn't know your boy had hands. So yeah, I used to knuckle up, man, put the paws on them because again, after a while, when you quiet and you kind of stand in the corner and you let somebody pick and pick and pick, you can only let that happen for so long until you lash out. And that's how it was with me. And then eventually, with that, I become the cooler kid, and all the girls want to, oh, he's smart and he can fight, all that stuff. So that was my experience in K-5. Was a lot of fighting in a sense, was a lot of learning myself in terms of writing, reading, writing, and just doing things in that aspect. And I got a lot of praise actually. And I actually to backtrack, I won a lot of awards. Like I used to write poetry in second grade. I wrote short stories. So I was doing a lot of stuff that I do to this day. Like I still write now, like as far as poetry. My lady should tell you, I'm always writing her stuff. And I think that's what really got her hooked when I first met her. I used to hit her with those wale's, you know what I'm saying? So and it's something that, helps me decompress, being able to write things down and put it into my language and, paint a picture, tell a story in a sense. So writing poems, writing short stories. And oh yeah, I got some of those coming out too. I got some short stories that I'm getting ready to start prepping. Like your boy, man, he really finna tap into his creativity in a sense. Like, my left brain has been pounding for a while now. Or is the right brain, left brain? One of the two, one of the lobes has been pounding. So I need to really get this information out there. But I think it's left brain. Yeah, so no, it's right brain. Where's left brain? I have to look it up, y'all. Fact check it for a second. I haven't thought about that in a minute. But yeah, so that was my K-5 experience. And then when I got to middle school, it was up. Like stayed on the honor roll, um and I went to again another language school. So the school that I went to, it was kind of like a feeder school. So I went to German immersion, you had Spanish immersion, French immersion, what else? So I think those are the three main schools. But then of course we had 32 language speaking classes or individuals. So people from all walks of life. I learned Japanese in middle school. I learned Swahili in middle school. So I was learning different language. And again, this feeds your brain, people. Like one thing people don't notice is, like, for instance, we talk about the people from the Asiatic people or the Northern African people. I say those two terms because I don't say the Middle East. I don't think that there's no such thing as the Middle East. That makes no sense at all. But these individuals who speak Arabic, Arabic, with that, that sound that they make with their jugular in a sense, right? That is actually, from what I've learned from different individuals, is it's kind of like a metronome, or when you hit like a gong or something, like when you hit something and there's those vibrations that play off of that object, That's what your throat does when you make those noise, and it feeds your brain. So people make fun of it, they make fun of that. But think about it, people from India are super smart, super smart. People from parts of Europe, Russia, nah, not so much Germany, um, but the Mandarin language, when they use these different their phonetically when they speak their linguistics, when they speak, these things feed their brain, and that's why America, we're so, our frequency level. I think they said we had our frequency levels at like a 23, which is like damn near slow. I'm not gonna use I don't use the R word because I feel like that's disrespectful. But we damn near slow. We're at the lowest functioning frequency when it comes to language. And like if you speak Arabic, you're at like a 46. I think that's what it is. Again, I have to fact check, but I learned a lot of stuff. I read a lot of stuff, so I'm like, okay, I might be mixing things up. But if you speak English, the American English, because that's not even real, honestly, it's a distinction of the old English, which was in England. Excuse me. Um, there's no the phonetic tone is, it's like dead, like it's like non-functioning in a sense. But some people are like, oh well, we're the best country in the world. Yeah, all right. Our food is trash. Phonetically, we, as far as our brain, how we feed our brain, we don't feed our brain, and we eat crap. So our brain is basically dead. I said what I said. So anyway, moving forward. But yeah, so that was what it was in middle school. Went to a language speaking middle school. Well, different languages were spoke at my middle school, and I was able to learn these different languages, which was pretty cool. Now, do I remember that stuff today? Not really, because if you don't use it, you lose it. So that's kind of what it was. But I had those opportunities to be in those environments where I was able to tap into myself. And again, my brain is growing and growing and growing, and I'm acquiring more languages and languages and languages and different things to help feed me as a person. So it was great. That's something that I'm super um, intentional about with my children. They got to learn a different language. They got to be able to tap into those different frequencies to help build their brain function and build them up in a sense. So the wife's on board, and we're gonna make it happen. So um, yeah, so that was middle school. Of course, a nerd, but again, I was a jock in middle school as well. So again, like I said in prior episodes, I was able to grow into myself as an individual, right? So of course, I still got my phenotype, phenotypical characteristics, right? Red hair, freckles, red bone in a sense. But started working out more, getting in shape, looking good in a sense, and it just played off because I was smart too. So again, I brought a lot to the table, right? So that was what that was. And then we get to high school. Now, high school was kind of a different story because high school was crazy for me. Yeah, high school was a transition. And reason why, like literally, I came into high school doing really well, making good grades, going to class. Of course, I played football, so I had that aspect. But the problem was not having a male figure, not having a positive male figure in the household to steer me in the right direction. I, man, that I started smelling myself. So I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta earn my respect. I gotta make sure I'm respected in these streets, right? So I'm out here fighting and getting suspended, skipping school, doing stuff I shouldn't be doing. And my grades, man, at one point, I think my one of my report cards, I had a point two. I had one D, rest F's, all F's. And I thought that was cool. Like I'm like, man, whatever. But at the same time, I'm like, man, learning that I got to be eligible for football, I was all right, I got to finesse this somehow, right? Because football was my thing. I got to play football. So I found out a way to do that without having to do the maximum or, extend the maximum of my potential as far as learning and being an intellectual being or smart, right? So with that, I kept falling in between the cracks. So my freshman and sophomore years, and probably that's the worst time for a person to mess up because you got to work hard to get out of that hole, like super hard. And that was my experience. So fast forward, and the reason, honestly, for me with school, the only reason why I got back on track was because I actually one of my teachers, Mr. Garland, shout out Mr. Garland. I started running track for him my junior year. Now my football coaches, they was cool. Shout out Coach Riccardi, Coach Roman, Coach Soda. I wasn't really feeling him too much. Coach Peter, um, Coach Braxton. He was one of the only black coaches on the squad. Everybody else was Hispanic or white. Um, who else was on the squad? Yeah, that was it as far as who I was coached by. Um, Coach Garland. They all played for the most part, like Roman, Riccardi, Garland. They played pivotal parts in my life in terms of like instilling accountability and responsibility into me. Because again, I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm seeing other dudes on the team do it. I ain't got nobody, I ain't really got no rules at home. I was wilding as a kid, wild, and I ain't gonna get into that. That's a story for another time. But again, like I knew I had it in me, and everybody else knew I had it in me because I've shown it. But I decided to go the wrong way because again, when you're conditioned, you're conditioned. That conditioning, man, it'll wear you out. So you got to be careful with that. Don't fall or don't let your mind go off kilter. You got to stay on point. Don't if you got to pivot a little bit, but don't fall off because it's real out here. But yeah, but I was like, man, I want to go to college because I never thought about going to college. I thought I was just gonna finish high school, get a good job, find somebody at the time, my son's mom. I was like, we're gonna be together and we're gonna work forever, buy a house, the American dream in a sense, right? Because that's what we do. We do the American dream, which is the American nightmare, if you ask me. Because this shit is trash. But again, as I digress, um, yeah. So got it on track. But the epiphany moment for me was when I was robbed. Like your boy got robbed at gunpoint one day walking home. I had skipped school, I skipped practice and went shopping. I'm like, let me go to the crib because I had a job, of course. So let me go. I'm going home. Same way I would walk every day. Every day I would walk this same route. And literally a whole bunch of dudes ran up on me in the alleyway, literally around the corner from the crib. Um, pulled the pistol out. Hey, give me what you got. And at the time, I had on a nice little fit, some Sub-Zero Jordans and nice little bait shirt, like pullover hoodie, you know, stuff like that. So they didn't take any of that. All they took was some pennies and some pens. They didn't even take my wallet. They didn't take my phone. Like, I'm like, what kind of robbers are y'all, man? Like, what the hell? So, but for me, that was the epiphany. It's like, man, you out here doing all this stuff you shouldn't be doing. Like, you got to get on point. So literally from that day on, I was going to school every day. I was taking my studies, and shout out to Miss Dockstader, uh, Mr. Hickey, Miss Dockstader, Mr. Hickey, Miss Lemon, Miss Harris, both of them. Shout out to the high school squad. Like, a lot of them I haven't spoken to in over a decade because I ain't been there. Miss Davis. Shout out to a lot of my counselor because I'm still in cahoots with some of them. Facebook friends or whatever. Actually, I just deleted my Facebook, but for those who are still like tapped in, like if I was to have an interview session with them, they'd let you know your boy was wilding, man. But they never gave up on me and always believed in me. So with that, it set the platform for me to be who I am today. So shout out to all them. Um, yeah. So for me, that aspect, I did a 180. So going to class, getting 4 points, and it's not hard to get a 4 point, especially in MPS, Milwaukee Public Schools. But I was doing it, right? And I was like, I'm going to college and, went on that whole experience of trying to get to college. Again, only help was really from my counselors. My parents, they never gone. So, I'm first generation. And I'm doing it. I'm filling out the FAFSA by myself and, just all of these things that, people, they don't understand how, not necessarily privileged, but how good they may have it when they have someone in their life to help them with this process because I had to get it out the mud in a sense. So and that's one of the biggest things in our community is a lot of the we're babies out here. We're 16 17 trying to figure it out because our parents had us when they was 14 15, and now we're trying to do things and do better and expand on ourselves, but we can't get that help because they don't know and they don't know what to ask. They don't know what's the first thing to do. So you got to tap in with your counselors. And if they're good counselors at that, because some of these counselors trash. They there for that check and they bounce out. They don't really tap in with the students and make sure that they're good and this is even at the college level, because I've had bad counselors and college academic advisors that, I'm like, man, you got a job, like you've been here 17 years, you suck. So yeah, so that's that. And eventually your boy graduated and left to go to college, and I kind of followed the same thing with that. Like, and I'm gonna talk about some misconceptions when it comes to college, because again, I've been a higher ed professional for about 7 years, 10 if you include the years that I coached football at the college level. So um yeah, it's a lot of misconceptions of what people may think, or things that you got to look further into or be mindful of, because you can get lost in the sauce for real. But yeah, undergrad was cool. I played football undergrad. Um, and again, I started tapping into those old habits of not going to class. I'm out here chasing these white females because I went to a predominantly white institution. One of I was one of two and a half black people on the team. So you can only imagine what that was. Um, so I'm out here living again. You by yourself. You're in your dorm. You're not. You have responsibility, but you don't think of it as a responsibility. You're just like, all right, I got to go to class. I may got two classes today, so that I'm gonna go eat, go lift, and I'm out here chilling, playing video games, or whatever case may be, right? Because that's what happens in college for the most part. You're either super studious or you're not. So with that, you got to kind of make a decision on what kind of student you're going to be. Are you going to meet in the middle, have a social life, but also be on your books? Um, and me, I decided to have a social life. Of course, I was super popular, red hair, freckles. This was the first time in my life where I wasn't bullied for it, but I was actually seen as a exotic in a sense. And of course, that term, when you talk about anyone melanated or in the black community, that's like a slur in a sense when somebody from another race call you exotic in a sense, right? Because again, you're looked at as an object, not a person. So I was eroticized in a sense, because again, I had these features that, oh, you cute if we had a baby. Oh my god, you know, Patrick Mahomes. My dude is not. I ain't gonna get on that. Patrick Mahomes is not that guy. He looked kind of weird. Um, shout out, Pat Mahomes. No offense, brother, but I had to say what I had to say. Um, but yeah, so that was undergrad, but came in and I was getting, I'm not going to class and I'm not studying, but I managed to scrape by with a 2 point. My first report card. Well, first marking period, right? And or semester. I'm saying marking period like I'm in grade school. First semester scraped with a 2 point, and reality hit me really when we was in a football meeting and a coach. We had just got a new coach hired, and he was asking like our GPAs. He was like, "All right, who all got a 2 point?" I raised my hand, all happy. Yeah, I got a 2 point, coach. And then it was me and three other people. Mind you, it's 120 guys in this room. 120 guys. I'm one of three who raised our hand and said we got a 2 point. Who got a 2.5? Maybe another 7 people raised their hand. Who got a 3 point? Like 40 people ran, 40, 50 people raised their hand. Who got a 3.5? 20 people. And then who got a 4 point? Maybe 10 people. I'm like, yo, your boy needs to get his act together. Like, I'm messing up. I can't. I felt stupid, mind you. I've always been the head of my class. Always been the head of my class. That's just who I've been outside of those few stints where I had, acting out and doing wild stuff, right? So for me, another epiphany is like, hey, bro, you here for a reason. You need to get on it, right? So that following semester, I was going to class more, tapping in more, going to tutor sessions with, because we know math. We just once we get to college, for some reason it becomes like Japanese. Like we just don't know what's going on. You all know how to FOIL. Everybody knows how to get A plus B equals C. Like these things in middle and high school, but when you get to college, it's just now you don't know what it is. It's crazy, right? So yeah, so I did it better. I got a 2.57 that next semester. I'm all right, cool. I'm eligible for football. I ain't got no F's or anything. I got a D in my remedial math class, but that don't count towards your grades, so don't worry about that. And then in the summer, I'm like, I didn't take any classes in the summer, but because I went back home and I was strictly working at Walmart third shift and training for football during the day. I got to be ready. I can be a starter the next year. Let's get it. I got the skills. So what's stopping me? So that's fall semester of sophomore year, again, and that's when I decided because I came in pre-professional, so I was going to be physical therapy, and for that you need at least a 3.6 to get into, to pass in a sense. So I'm like, man, I already started off rough, so I gotta make up for that. And for some reason I just kept having the same issue, 2 point this, 2 point that, and I'm thinking but I'm not applying myself. Again, it was so easy in high school and middle school that I wasn't doing. I'm thinking I go to college and scrape away with the same ideology when that was not the case at all. So I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to pull forth and still trying to have a social life. At this point, I moved off campus with some of my football friends. We got us a little apartment or whatever, and one of them, he a good dude. Shout out Victor, good dude. Helped me out a lot. He's a I think he might be a pre-professional. He might be a physical therapist right now. We were on the same route. He from a white town outside of Milwaukee, but he was a cool dude. So shout out to him. I ain't spoke to him in years though. Got married, had a baby, and everything. So, but it be like that. Y'all cool, and then y'all kind of lose touch, and then everybody kind of go their own way in a sense. So that's something that happens. But long story short, with that undergrad, again, of course, I passed, and I got my GPA up to a 3.0, 3.1 actually. Graduated with a 3.1. I got into my program, graduated with a degree in exercise sports science, and from there I went on to coach football and become a trainer and do a lot of things that was pretty fun. And after a while, with a kid and stuff like that, you can't do the bare minimum. You got to really set yourself up. So for me, I'm like, I got to go back and get a master's because if I really want to coach at the highest level, they need you to have a master's. I don't know why, because a lot of Nick Saban, I don't think he has a master's. A lot of these coaches that are, at these premier BCS schools, the top tier Power Five schools, they don't have degrees like that. So for me, it doesn't make sense. But um, yeah, so I went back and got a master's in educational leadership because one, I was like, if coaching football doesn't work, I at least still want to work at the college level with students or serving that capacity and help them come through the ranks, especially if black male or female. I really want to be there for y'all. And my first experience coaching was at a HBCU at Savannah State University. So I already had that experience coming from you know PWI, HBCU, go back to Wisconsin, get my master's at a PWI, an urban institution as they call it. I'm like, just because it's in a, and it's not even a black neighborhood. It's downtown, so that's not black at all. There's nothing black about that. It's nothing. It's urban, but it's not. When you think of urban, you think of people of color and things of that nature. But there was nothing urban about the school or the area because it's white as hell there. So after I graduated there, what I do, went to go work at another institution, and then I went on to pursue my doctorate at Morgan State University, which I'm still there enrolled, trying to get over the hump. Man, it's tough when you're trying to get a doctorate because again, it's so many factors, and you have to unlearn so much that you've learned from all the way up to your master's. You've been in school now, what, 18 years of your life, and you've been taught all these things, and when you work on a doctorate, it kind of back shifts and whatnot. It's like, all right, everything you just learned, throw all that away, delete all that, and you got to learn all this now because this is the fundamentals of what you need to do in order to be a theoretical doctor in a sense, a physiological, I mean not physiological, philosophical doctor. How you do that? So you telling me everything I learned to this point is irrelevant? That works. So yeah, so that's been my journey in a sense, and I ain't gonna hold you. I want the doctor, but then I don't because like now I'm on this entrepreneurial like journey. I'm trying to build wealth, and I feel like when you go to school again, you're told you got to do things this way. There's no like room to be the wiggle room. Even with me with my dissertation topic, like it's so provocative that like my chair and people that I tell about it, like man, you're gonna be in for some heat because people are gonna be coming after you based on what you want to talk about. But I'm like, why are we not talking about this? We should have been talking about it because it's prevalent. There's a lot of articles out here that talks about this. No one, but the only thing about it is there's no dissertation on here about the topic. So even though it might be provocative, even though it might, stir the pot a little bit, why are we not stirring the pot in higher education? Why should we not talk about those things that impact the lives of people who are unrepresented in a sense, or there's a lack of black males, specifically heterosexual black males in higher ed. You can probably count on 10 hands how many out of over 6,000 institutions. Think about it. Over 6,000 institutions, black heterosexual black men probably make up 1%. Maybe not even that. So let that sink in. So yeah, but no, but some of the misconceptions, like I said, is making sure that you stay on point with your if you do get financial aid, get as many grants and scholarships as possible, because these loans are real and things are inflated, especially now, and they're going to continue to go up. So, and like the way jobs are paying people, they're paying people it's slave wage. Honestly, they don't pay you enough to get a house, get a car, take care of your children, and be able to pay your student loans back. Some people with student loans are paying back almost $700 to $800 a month. That's almost a mortgage. You paying a mortgage and student loan. That's ridiculous. So you got to be mindful when you're taking out this money. Yeah, it's good. You get your refund check. A lot of people get the refund check. Oh, let me go buy me some shoes. Let me buy some clothes. Because I was that person. I was I was lost in the sauce, like I said earlier. So I'm like, I bought it. My boy C Rod be like, man, you get a new car every year. I know I get this financial aid money every year. So I stayed with different cars, and again, my credit was great at that point. But when that money stopped coming, you're like, oh man, what am I doing? I was basing things off this money, but that money ain't there no more. So you gotta, be mindful of how you're spending your money, how what you're taking out, because you got to pay that money back at some point. Loans you have to pay back at some point. And the way these interest rates are looking, they're getting higher and higher and higher. And again, wages are not matching what you have to pay out. So make sure when you're talking to your children, or if you're a kid, or you're a young adult listening in, make sure you're going to school for the right reasons. Just to get away from your parents is not the right reason. Just because you don't know all your friends are going is not the right reason. Don't get me wrong. Some people have uh, um, a story, in a sense. They have a pivotal story, right? They weren't planning to go to college. They end up going to college and they turn out well. Great. A round of applause. You know? But at the end of the day, when we talk about, your return on your investment, right? You got to make sure you're getting a return on your investment. And that's why I'm not trying to slam these degrees, but I'm gonna tell you now, it's really hard to get it unless you're a white woman, in a sense. It's really hard to do anything with these degrees. But if you get anything in humanities, and you're probably like, what are humanities? Psychology, communication. Oh, don't get me started on that one. Psychology, communications, sociology, history, linguistics. If you want to work with people who have what's it called, psycho something. It's psychopathic or something. No, no, not like a psychopath, but it's something like I can't think of the term for it. But again, these where you are in like human services. If you're in a human service job, you're not really gonna make no money. All the money, and I quite honestly, doctors, lawyers, if you really think about that, when it's all said and done, they go to school, they accumulate anywhere from 200 to 600 grand in debt. And of course they can make a lot of money, but after they graduate, after being in school for so long, well, not judges so much, but doctors, after they've been in school so long, a lot of them don't really start seeing money like that until after like their fifth or sixth year after they've graduated, because they've had to pay down these loans. Of course, you got to get a house, you got to get you a car that match your, excuse me, that match your a profession, because again, you got to put on that facade that you really out here getting it, and you're in different circles, so you're spending more money than you're bringing in. So be mindful of that. If you're not in STEM, if you're not in computer science, if you're not in IT, if you're not in um, cybersecurity or coding or something like that, those are the degrees, architecture or whatnot, engineering, STEM. If you're not in these professions, you're not really making money. And what's nice about those STEM degrees, you can coming out of undergrad make good money. So, we talking 70, 80K. But again, for me, I'm over the whole 9 to 5 working for somebody, putting on this front and being around people that are ignorant. Like I'm over it. So yeah. But yeah, so misconceptions, making sure that you stay on your financial aid, make sure you understand the different um offices at the university, rather it's a bursar office, they deal with your monies, like in terms of like any holes that you might have on your account, registrar, that's your grades, that's graduation, etc., etc. Um, student accounts. Again, that's another part of the our Barsar office. Financial aid, that's how you get money in a sense to pay for college. Rather it's grants, loans, scholarships. And yeah, just be mindful of that. For y'all parents that are tapping in and need to know, like, if y'all need to contact me, you can reach out to me. Again, my IG, it's on here. You can hit me up and we can have a conversation. I will give you free game because it's real out here. And you need to know what's going on. You need to know what your child is signing up for, and if they're making the right decision. Because their wrong decision could put you back 10 years. And a lot of people, even when they finish college, they don't get a job. A lot of people are working at McDonald's, Bob's Furniture, doing these things because they're trying to figure out a way because they didn't get a job in the profession, in the area that they went to school in. So just be mindful of that. Be on your P's and Q's, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And if you feel like somebody's not giving you proper information, make sure get a first, second, third, fifth opinion, because this is livelihood we're talking about. And the way things are looking, things are going. AI, artificial intelligence, they're not gonna need human labor in the next probably 20 years. So you got to set something up where you're good. That's why entrepreneurship is real. So, man, I talked about a lot of stuff today, and I really didn't even get into the nitty gritty of it the way I wanted to. I shared a lot about my experience, my journey, as far as being a sense of nerd, and loving being an avid learner, being an avid pursuer of information, things of that nature. And I don't know, I like that. I can sit here and watch documentaries all day. I can listen to audiobooks all day because that's just kind of how I've molded myself. I've been doing this since I was like 5 or 6 years old. It's just been my thing. And like I said, everybody's not cut like that. But that's been my experience, and I'm appreciative of it because it's helped me to be more open minded about everything. Don't look at everything face value. Take some things with a grain of salt. Do your due diligence on the back end. So yeah, it's real. But yes, I'm gonna conclude this episode because I feel like I've talked about it enough. And if I get anybody else that want to talk about the topic, we can definitely tap in because it's real. So with that being said, again, it's your boy Quali. This is the Nonstop Playing podcast. And again, I thank y'all for the love and support. And if you haven't already, hit that follow button on Spotify. Check me out on Anchor. That's the app I use to record majority of my information or content. And again, I'm gonna get on some more, Apple Play, and I'm getting on some more of these platforms. But you got to pay for that stuff. So let me get this bread first, and then I'm gonna start tapping in on that level. But again, this is episode 9, episode 10 coming this weekend, and after that, the collabs are coming, and I got some fire for y'all. So I'm super excited. But again, thank y'all for tuning in, and I'll be back with another serious topic next episode. Y'all take care.